So, in this episode, I would like to really gain more insights on the power of trust. And that's what I want to really emphasize as we move through the different stories we're sharing today, and how to trust more with spirit, trust more with our hunches, insights, and impressions. And so, let's get it started, guys.
Yeah, well, that sounds good because how do you trust when you're in the middle of chaos in the environment?
Yeah.
Which brings me to the first story, uh, which is about Iran and where they're at with lots of demonstrations and clearly a chaotic environment. And if I've, some of the news video clips that I've seen, I mean, those people are packed in the street. We're not talking about a token protest where 10 people are fill the frame to make it look like it's 100 or 1,000 or something. We're talking about tens of thousands of people. And what strikes me is one, I was surprised that the current government, with the Ayatollah and so forth, that religious government is so weak. I was kind of surprised, and I have thoughts about that. But I thought for those people, I really feel for them because they're going through all kinds of. I mean, there are people being shot for protesting and killed, and really, I don't think we have any idea. Maybe the CIA has an idea of how many people have been
They said
actually
thousands.
killed.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to know. And, how do I relate that to what I'm going through? Because my life is pretty calm in comparison. What would you like to say about that, Lisa?
Well, it's interesting because as I was tuning into this specific story and some of the back information about it, like it's been quite a while since Iran's really been kind of heightened to this degree. It's been quite a while, and so some of the things that popped in my mind is the energy of being disembodied, like not imbalanced there, and how right now we're at a point where I actually saw like a kaleidoscope. How, you look through the kaleidoscope and there's all these colors and then everything kind of is out of focus and it comes into focus. So it felt to me like that was another area, just like a lot of other things right now, the Minnesota things and the things happening here and there. And it's just another area of like us coming into getting clarity on what's going on and how can these people become more empowered in what they're experiencing and in their life.
Yeah, I agree. And that last part there is what stood out to me, the empowerment of it all. And it is difficult to if for people who've never been in a chaotic environment like those things, or if you haven't even really been out of the country and seen, different cultures and so forth, it's a bit of it's difficult to relate to. And I know we've all traveled, and maybe some of you listening have traveled, so it's you kind of know better. It's like different cultures, different systems. But the thing that really stands out to me is that whole empowerment thing about when the time is ripe, right? When the time is ripe, when that fruit on that tree starts getting ripe, it's going to start attracting stuff one way or another. Right. I mean, the seeds inside that fruit start moistening, right? They start being able to sprout themselves. And so as long as the environment, the readiness, me as a soul, or them as a group are ready for change, then it will follow through. If there's not enough, then the current regime will just keep doing what it's always doing, and it will suppress, the people. So, I guess my first run at this is just that there's something about the ripeness of things, the readiness of things in order to have true change. Otherwise, it's just an emotional roller coaster. And I go right back down to where I was. So that's kind of the first thing.
Well, that strikes a chord with me as you share that because I was a bit surprised with the fact that, wow, there are that many people protesting. So, clearly I had an illusion about where Iran was at. And I like what you said there about how there must be enough energy, souls that are ready for a change. Something's tipped the scale. So now that things start falling more into place, that they can actually, migrate that energy into a different scenario. I mean, it's really something about that area. It's one of the, earliest civilizations. Lots of great stuff's come from that.
Right.
You wouldn't know it sometimes,
Right.
and a completely different way of life back when the Shah was, in charge in the bad old days or the good old days or whatever. But there were other issues at the time. So, uh, yeah, what an interesting illusion that they had put forward. I also feel like once decisive action is taken, that it bursts the bubble of the illusion of the strength that they had. Once the United States decided that they were going to not tolerate, say, the nuclear, capability and so forth, it really, the whole illusion of the place kind of, you know, went into shambles, kind of a thing. I also find hope in it that there's a lot of good people there that, are looking for a better way of life.
So the interesting part that I found too about this whole scenario is that they cut off their internet.
Right.
So it's like in the midst of, a change and a lot of things happening, there's obviously outer forces that are trying to also keep it from expanding, but the power of the people and the power of the energy that's, like you're saying, ripe and that's ready to expand and explode and move into a different area, irregardless if you've got internet or not, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think to
That's
me that was a big.
Yeah,
yeah.
and I
Go ahead.
also
Finish.
think
It was
that
good.
We exist in a highly intellectual world, and often the feeling part where your inner wisdom lies gets left out. There's a way to feel more in balance with all parts of yourself. This way is by accessing a spiritual bigger picture of who you are as a soul. Check out the link in the show notes to access a free video series created by the Wayshowers College to support your journey and moving through this game of life. Your intellect and feeling parts will love it.
you're have a little bit of technical difficulties here.
No, no, no,
Uh,
no. So what I was gonna, got excited about what you're saying. About because most people who follow the story did find out about they're cutting off their internet. Basically, they're trying to quell it by dividing the people, keeping them from their communication, keeping them from connecting, and that is we've had this conversation before. Uh, the first thing, one of the first things that outside pressures, confusion, or the enemy tries to do to their opponent is disrupt communications. That's the number one, like, tactics 101. This is what you do. And
yeah,
and so if that way they can, they become divided, they're easily conquered. And there's such a that area has, like Tom, you're saying, it's such a rich history. I mean, you just pull back one or two layers, it's amazing what was born from that whole region and that whole area. And so it's great, they're great people. They're great people, but there is this energy where there's this history of dictators and suppressing a lot of things there. So it's difficult to make change. Right. And I think, just to kind of get to the broader part, because why are other countries vested in that? Like, why aren't we just saying, hey, your thing, whatever, and we just walk away? So there is vested interest in spiritually, in wanting to have people free, make their own decisions. That's one part, but that can be done individual to individual. So then the next part is, what happens with surrounding countries, surrounding things, trade, when there's a more free opportunity to work with people, work with governance. And that's part of where the sticking point comes in, because you got the good parts of getting involved and you got the not so good parts of getting involved. and that becomes the narrow highway sometimes to navigate for what we would hope for to be something that we're going to work with more freedom, we're going to work with more opportunity, and that's, I think, for myself, what I want to inspire in people. Like, how can I back myself and my community to have more of that freedom, to have more of that self governance and that opportunity to exchange with people. So that's the feeling of it, besides the other part of, the intervening and all that kind of stuff. What does this mean for me? How am I going to take this home and do something about it? Because unless I'm going to go over there and personally try to do something, I need to make sure that I'm taking care of my own well-being in my own community, my own family. That's the first stage. Once I do that, then I can step to the bigger picture and help.
Yeah, for myself, I'm glad you went that way, down that road, Tiger, because I was feeling the same way. And it's kind of like when we share these stories, it's relating to, okay, so how can we or I relate to that story in my life right now? And it's almost unrelatable, right? Like, this is Iran, around, a whole other part of the world. And say if it's, even in Minnesota, that's, how many, hours of miles away from us. Like, so it's, how do I relate to these? And what I hear you saying, and for myself too, is doing my own work, is recognizing, how can I make a change in my close knit environment? How can I make a change in my work? How can I show up in the way that I want to show up? Because that echoes and resonates out to the whole. So even if we don't think, oh, I can't do anything for Iran, I can't do anything for Russia, I can't do anything for Venezuela. Well, yes, we can. I myself can be, a change in what I do each day and how I show up to make a difference.
Yeah, and what strikes me about that is how, I'm in an opportunity where I have other types of experiences where I can be of service. So pat myself on the back as a soul that I've organized myself. I've organized my opportunity so well that I'm completely detached from what's going on, overseas in that country. And of course, I relate to the folks. My heart goes out to certain folks, and I have my ideas. I prefer freedom and all that good stuff. The American way, so to speak. In the idealistic form, but not everybody's there, and I guess I accept that. But I don't have to get like drawn into over sympathizing or feeling guilty that I'm not helping or in these kinds of situations, because I've organized myself, for different opportunities. So like, I guess what really is coming to the fore for me is just allow myself to face my day with my opportunity from that, spiritual perspective of service and trusting spirit and working through it. This is my time and my opportunity to do that, to be in the present and be where I am.
Yeah, just to start to recap on, was bringing up that thing about things need to be ripe and just in the right timing, so to speak. And to add to that, Teresa, you're bringing up another good point that's related to that, and that is the environment. And it's in the perfect world, wherever I go, I can transform the environment because of my beingness. And there's a lot of truth to that, right? There's just a lot of truth to that. However, there is reality that if I have a chaotic environment, if I have people that are surrounding me who are always depressed or always angry or always finding some excuse to not be happy, right? I mean, isn't that the old joke? It's like, do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? It's that whole thing about when you're talking with people. the environment does play a role. And the if I'm going to start to reach my potential, I need to discern the environment. It's not to say that I need to just keep moving all the time. It's just that I need to start refining my environment. And that's part of what this story with Iran is starting to hit me with is that I need to start getting my environment where it needs to be in order to help me excel, to help me reach my potential, to help me fulfill my purpose and thrust in life. And so that may mean that I'm going to have to let some things go. That may mean I have to open myself and invite some other things in. And at a more extreme level, sometimes it does mean that I need to shift locations. I need to change my environment, even if it's temporary, right? And that's that old saying, that in the Christian belief system, they say, the Messiah is not accepted in their homeland. And what I'm trying to say there is that not trying to say anyone or myself is the Messiah. I'm simply the parable about that, or the symbolism about that, is it's difficult to move out of a environment or people that see me a certain way and they want to keep me a certain way. That's the challenge with parenting. All of you listening, and I'm sure all of us have the experience with parenting, is like, I need to, number one, I need to see you as a soul. I need to see the child, that baby, that young person as a soul first. And then everything can stack up after that, or come, the water can go downhill after that. But if I see them as my child, then I freeze the situation in time and I never really allow that natural expansion to move past me, right? I get threatened. I'll get threatened as a parent. Oh, no, you shouldn't do that, kind of thing. So it's important that I discern my environment. I allow my environment to be supportive, which is why we hang certain pictures on the wall, and why we paint the wall a certain way or pick a house a certain way. We want something that's supportive. I want something that's supportive. So going back to this story, to me, it's like, I think why there's that encouragement for people to go to the streets and want to have change and shift government and to be more free is because most of us innately, especially people listening to this, know that environment is important. If I have an environment around me that's supportive and not suppressive, then I'm going to be able to do more with less.
So one of the things that strikes me is that, and I was thinking about the Iran situation. I remember the days when the Shah of Iran was in charge, and it was a little bit of a dictator situation, and he had his secret police that people rebelled against and so forth. And then, of course, it got replaced with another sort of dictatorship. And
Right.
I think the trouble is that, and bringing it back to myself, is when people, or when I look outside myself for my leadership, and of course, when I'm working with others in a project or a task, there's people who are the crew chief, and there's people that we work with to be in charge, and there's the boss at work, and somebody who's carrying that energy to help with the direction and so forth. But how I react to everything is all about me, and I think what I'm witnessing there is people in Iran being disillusioned with the form of dictatorship they've had more currently for the last, 40 something years or whatever it is. And, the key is not to replace it with another form of outside myself, or at least keep that in balance, So if I don't do that, I notice that I can go through disappointment after disappointment, and I've been more aware of the subtle thoughts where I just accept that somebody outside myself has the wisdom for me, or will take care of me. And I don't mean in a, in a big way, but in little ways, that almost buying into that without checking with myself, without checking with my true feelings as to how I'm going to react to that or respond rather than react to something. Because people are going to be who they are and where their level of consciousness is at.
As the Earth's crust shifts and changes, our lives do the same. One way to maneuver through the small and large moments that shake us to the core is by reviving your connection to spirit, gathering ways to cleanse your energy field, embracing spiritual awarenesses to give you a bigger picture, and knowing that you are not alone on your journey can be a great support. The Soulquake Survival Guidebook is a great companion to meet you where you're at and support reviving your connection to spirit in earth-shaking times. Get your copy today through Amazon worldwide in paperback, ebook, or in audio, and begin embracing more clarity, inner peace, and enthusiasm for your life and what you've come to do.
So that ability to not be reactive is what's really coming up for me. And I guess my final words on this one is, because late, and especially like you said, Tiger, like, really seeing people as souls. So we've been in situations lately where some of the people have been, acting certain ways. And for myself, I, like, even last night I was at a place and I saw someone doing something, and I was like, okay, literally to myself, for my, my spiritual training and all that I know, I was like, okay, I see them as a soul, but I was like, but God damn it, I don't like what they're doing. I mean, and that's the human part of me. That's honest, and that's the human part of me. So I really, and it's practicing trusting that, and where I'm at and where the other person's at and what they're, experiencing and what they're, and how I want to emote my emotions, but I'm more reserved because I just don't need to go there. And so I guess that comes back to, again, the
Right.
trust and recognizing how these stories each week is all about building our trust in and how we see the pictures that are going on, how we feel about the things. And and I'll go back to myself, and then how am I staying relaxed and moving through and not feeding into the energies of what's going on outside of my immediate area as I'm seeing these things going on each week. And it's a challenge, but it's also part of what we're here to do, which is continually show up, continually learn and grow, and trust in, for myself, that spiritual part that's always there to love back and support me.
You might say
Right.
too that, that consistent habit of looking outside ourselves for someone to save us or be the leader or, lead the country. And even if you like who's in charge, I always have to tune into, okay, let's see what they do. Like, let's see, okay, they have that opportunity, even in business. So like, okay, this person has this opportunity. The stage is set. They've got an energy, a momentum working with them. Let's see now, I can tune into the possibilities, but not get sold or elude myself on what's going to transpire. And even the folks that say support Trump, quite a bit, they'll be disillusioned, and we're already seeing that, and in other words, like buying into an intellectual narrative that I create for myself instead of saying, well, let's see how this plays out. And I feel the same thing with Iran. I mean, it's interesting. I go, wow, the conditions are ripe. More was going on there than I thought. People are, but they have kind of, in a way, allowed themselves, or I sometimes allow myself to have to get into this chaotic, riotous situation because I've just let it go too far for too long. And it becomes a
Right.
big drama, that I hadn't set my boundaries or that I over trusted something outside myself. I think that's one of the things I see in society a lot.
Final words, Tiger?
Yeah, I mean the trust I is going to be the theme for a lot of this and our other stories. The I have to do something to talk about something specific real quick, because you're hitting this key point. You're kind of giving people the technique to work with, because there are plenty of things with everything I know. There's plenty of things that I get all stimulated, my cage gets rattled, and I'll just get angry or get sad, or something will happen to my energy temporarily. And so I need to do something with it, right? Where I have the most trouble, especially for those who are sensitive to the environment, and when I, just sensitive to people, is I need to do something with the energy when it's not positive. When thoughts come to me that aren't building thoughts, they're just taking down thoughts, right? They're lower. I need to do something with that. And if I don't, it's going to sit on me. It's going to weigh on me. And then pretty soon it's going to tinker around inside me, right? My thoughts get going, and then I have the pains and aches pretty soon. And, I'm feeling, tired, and then I have to go sleep, or I have to go get another coffee because, whatever the thing is, because I've allowed it to be there and sit. And so part of an important thing for me to do, and anyone who works with this, is to say, oh, there's that thought, or that's what that person's doing, right? They're caught up in that, and not doing it in a judgmental way. That's the key to the whole thing. As long as I don't judge myself for thinking certain thoughts, as long as I don't judge other people for doing certain things, I identify it and say, yeah, but that's not what I'm going to do, right? I respect where you're at, but that's not what I'm going to do, right? This is what I'm going to do. And that transforms it into something different, and it doesn't sit on me, right? So I can trust people to be people. I can trust that people are going to go through their ups and downs. I can trust that politicians are going to be politicians. I can trust 100%. In our system, the founders of the country they really wrote tremendous things because they were creating something new. And one of them was, as a citizen, I need to have a healthy mistrust of the government. A healthy mistrust, not an unhealthy mistrust, meaning that anytime there's authority outside of myself, I need to look at that with a little bit of scrutiny, right? Not anger, not fear, just like, oh, okay, let me make sure I'm aware of that, right? Because in the end, it's a little bit what, like you were sharing, Tom, I need to come home to my fellowship with myself, the power and fellowship with my guidance and my purpose, because that's what I take with me. In the end of the day, I can't take it on with me. I can't take the presidents and the prime ministers with me. I can only
Thank
take
goodness.
what I've pulled together. Exactly.
All right. Well, I think we've gotten that one down. So it's interesting because I looked at something that happened in history this week, and and something to bring forth. And I had an interesting story about this. Happened in January 2005. A Romanian university lecturer and novelist named Adriana Iliescu gave birth at 66, and at that time she was the oldest woman to have done that. And so it's interesting because her story was that she was married at 20, and her husband did not want to have children, so they divorced. Now, my first thing was like, well, you wouldn't find that out before you married him. But anyway, so then she went
Many people don't.
Many people don't. You can kind of going blind. I guess I'm thinking back at 20. Oh, hell yeah, I probably would have done it too. So we're at a different place in 20 than where we're at.
They can talk them out of it.
Right.
Or they just never bring it up because they just want to be with somebody.
Yeah. So then she dedicated her life to teaching. And then for 9 years, she was treated for infertility later in life, but unsuccessful. Then she went to in vitro fertilization at 66. Wow. That's when she got pregnant. She had triplets. 2 died in the womb, and this little girl lived. She was a preemie. And basically, during that whole time, she was obviously, not looked highly upon. She was a very religious lady. And there was a story in there that said that when she actually had the child baptized, and when the child was baptized, the nuns were looking at her really badly. And one of them even said that the little child was a product of a dark force.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so there's a lot that she dealt with. Today she's 83, and obviously the child's quite a bit older. But it's just for me, an interesting story on trusting the contracts and the ways we move through our life, even later in life, and the judgment. So opening up the fields for comments, and let's chat a little about this.
Well, one of the things
Yep.
that strikes me is what you just said was, boy, there could have been a contract there. And come hell or high water, so to speak, that lady wanted to get that taken care of. That she probably didn't think of it that way. But there was impelling energy or force that moved her to move through all that. And, in the bigger picture, a soul came through and they're having their experience. And
Well, we'll say, coming back at it, that
yeah.
she actually always wanted to feel what it felt like to be a mom.
Okay.
So there was this yearning desire there.
Yeah, this is a tremendous story. I too latched on to what you said, Teresa, about the contracts and how souls come together and the needs. I guess addressing the whole judgment part of it, and we need to have certain basis and values and to get us started in our venture in life. But that's the idea of where we start. I can get dogmatic, or someone can get dogmatic about something, and oh, now this is the dark forces and stuff like that because they had the kid later. Maybe there's truth to it, but the problem gets in there is when I start judging, and because I have no idea, and it's none of my business what other people's roles are in their life's journey. It's I don't know, and it's difficult for me to know because it's their opportunity. I got a full-time opportunity to figure my stuff out, but that's just something to be aware of, that if I'm going to do something that's outside the box, right? And that's happening more and more every day. With the internet, we're now able to see more and do more. With automation, there's able to go further than we've ever gone before. So we're stepping outside the box. We're stepping outside what would be considered the norm. And that comes with a price. No matter whether you think that's good or bad, it's a fact. So this lovely lady decided to have children at that age, which most ladies will know is that, as you get older, you have to start being careful about that because the system is different. Your body changes and you go through things. And so it can be dangerous for the pregnancy. So if you're going to step outside that whole thing of where people are giving birth between 18 and 28 or whatever the thing is, you're going to open yourself up to ridicule. And I think the old saying is, Aristotle, is that if you want to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. And then you can avoid criticism, right? And so that energy is, if any one of us, I know, just kind of speaking broadly, if I'm going to fulfill on my purpose, there will be times I step out of the box. There will be times that I'm not in the standard structure of society's rights and wrongs. And to be clear here, I don't want to say any Facebook or any social media that I'm Tiger saying to break the law. I'm not. I'm just saying that at some point, I'm going to break out from the old norm. right? I'm going to break out from the old rules and regulations that I've got stuck in my mind. That's part of nature, to expand and go beyond what my first 7 years were, what my parents were. So I just said, I'm saying a lot here, but the bottom line is I can't judge because I don't truly know what contracts are with people. And if I'm going to do what I've really come to do, then I need to be prepared. This person's going to have to be prepared. And that soul, that the child, is going to have to unconsciously know that I chose something outside the norm, right? And probably because her destiny remains outside the norm. There's probably a need there. So that's the two major things that really stand out to me on this.
Yeah, it's interesting because as I'm feeling into it and to the situation of them being souls and the contracts and what they're playing out together, is that kind of what you're saying, Tiger? Like, we don't know what anyone is here to really experience. And it excites me because as I'm moving into, I'll be 58 this July, and people around me, yeah, shut up, 69er. And people around me are, aging and aging. There's a mindset with people. Like once you get past, okay, I'll put it this way. When I was a massage therapist, I had a lady come to me who was a nurse practitioner. She was in her 40s and she was talking about aches and pains and how horrible life was. I'm like, holy crap, lady, you are in your 40s. And of course I was in my 40s then too, but so shifting that mindset and being able to recognize that as a soul in a physical body, yes, we age, but it's not a death until the end. Like stop living until the, live until the end, not stop living, live. And so that, to me, that's part of this story is just an amplification of a realization that you don't have to stop living, but you do have to obviously deal with the ramifications of, if I'm going to have a baby at 66 and I'm very religious and all these people around me have religious concepts and beliefs, I'm going to have some feedback that's probably going to be intense, but that's also for her soul's growth. So I don't know. I was just very empowered by that. And I'll also share that the doctor that did the in vitro with her, she actually made a deal with him that in the case of her death, he would become the godfather and help raise his child until it was of age. So she set things up very smart also. So it wasn't like she just came in and goes, hey, if I die in 2 years, whatever. Like she had a plan for this child and this soul that came in.
Yeah, what strikes me is, it's she, so many times we take that risk. We go out on a limb because we trust ourselves. There's times when we really trust ourselves and other people don't see how you could do that. It's too fraught with danger. Too risky, that kind of a thing. And she just really backed herself. Now, if I were in her shoes, I don't know that I would have done that. However, I don't have those drivers. I didn't have that impelling feeling, to move forward with that. And yeah, I think it's great. It reminds me a little bit about what we were talking about last time, which is when the Beatles came out with Rubber Soul, or when people who are the spearheads in music, or reflecting the new wave of sounds and things like that, and the new ways of doing things. New art often reflects where people are at. That at first it's like, what are they doing? Why would they do that? And over time, people go, wow, that was amazing, but it's a change. So not that I'm certainly not advocating that everybody go out and do that. To me, that's one of those one-offs, but good honor for, following through with what she felt she needed to do.
I kind of something that's going to start, I think, connecting the whole thing together for me, these stories, is a quick discussion about how I can wait and miss my opportune times. That I feel something and I don't act upon it at that moment, or I don't discern when I feel something the timing for it. Right? There's like I have lots of thoughts that come to me as an intuitive, I there's plenty of thoughts that come rolling around, and if I don't discern where that's coming from, what the timing is of for certain ideas, I get kind of moved left and right by things, and I miss the opportunity, right? And then what happens is I have to start taking second and third and fourth and fifth best when I could have had
Mm.
the right thing at the right time, doing what needs to be done. And so to me, this is all starting to, everything is in its perfection, right? So I don't want to say that here she was, she had the kid at 66 and now she's in her 80s. Everything happened to fulfill the destiny, right? Within that, within that, there are timings that are more ideal than others. There's more
Mm.
backing at certain timing than others. The whole block is going to let me do what I need to do. However, do I want to do it with greater ease, or do I want to do it with greater tension? And so I can say for my own life, every time that I've not pinned down the timing or I didn't act on that impression, I always set myself up to have more friction later. I still accomplished it, but it's amazing how much wear and tear I built into the situation. And so kind of coming back to the full circle here of Tom, you were talking about Iran and how the protest has to happen, and like there has to be this big upheaval, right? It's because things were left too long in that energy, and now there has to be a big deal, right? Instead of the
Yeah.
right timing, no, we're not going to do that. Let's shift that, and things are easier. And so when I have that urge, when I have that desire to give birth to that new idea, then it's important for me to grab onto the timing. When's the timing? And that's something that we talk about when I know when you all share and do courses and profiles and a lot of our materials. It's all about starting to work with your spiritual helpers so that you can discern things for yourself. You know, I know we talked about coming, there's a new membership coming out where people can learn that kind of stuff. But without getting into the details, imagine if every impression or inspiration that I received, I was able to discern the right timing for it, to put
Mm.
myself in the middle of the river at the right time. And then it's effortless. Like I sometimes used to get pissed off at people that seemed so effortlessly to be abundant or to have this perfect relationship. Well, I'm pissed off because I'm not doing it, not because they're doing it. I'm the one not following through on that timing. So to me, the kind of the consolidation of these stories and what I'm going to go forward into my week with is about really discerning. Number one, I can't please everybody. I need to be on my own thing. I need to think outside the box. I can play the game of life. I need to play the game of life, work within the parameters of society because that's in my benefit. That's in my benefit. But I also need
Mm-hmm.
to think outside the box. And when those impressions come, when spirit gives me that inspiration, I need to move. I need to do something with that energy. Because when I don't, I pay a price. I'll still get the job done, but I pay a price. So to me, going forward, it's all about knowing that I've come to do something different than the average person. I'm not saying that I'm better. I'm just saying I come to do something different. And that means I'm going to be open to ridicule, right? If I don't want ridicule, do nothing, say
Yeah.
nothing, be nothing, right? But the moral of the story for me is be willing to move forward, willing to grab the timing and grab that fruit when it's ripe.
Yeah, and for myself, the wrap up for both of these stories and back to the keyword of trust and the power of trust is
Right.
recognizing that where I'm at in my journey at this moment is the perfect place for me. And these stories just give me that back to that kaleidoscope. It gives me another view of what's a different variety, or what's a different essence that's happening on the planet right now, that I can continually build up my trust in working with my spiritual helpers and my, the unseen parts of me, my intuition, my spiritual gifts, so I can trust deeper when these stories come up and I see things happening. Or I have an experience with the lady next door who's 95 and had a baby, and oh my God, like not 66, 95. How am I trusting, and where I'm at is the perfect place for my journey and what I've come to experience, as well as the lady who was 66 and the people in Iran and what they're going through in Minnesota and over in Australia. And it's just another example for myself this week of trust. And like you're saying, Tiger, also moving into the new week, because as we know, these stories seem to mirror what I'm going through, what the collective's going through, and giving us opportunities to trust deeper.
Yeah, what I
Right.
got out of that is when opportunities come up, and I notice that as a visionary, when I'm involved in certain things, like ideas, so this picture of come to mind of the potential of something. And then I've often said to myself later, gosh, that didn't really work out the way I thought it would, or the potential of it, or this nice idea that I had. And I think for me, what's missing is that as I see that impression of the potential, is just what I'm going to do differently moving forward is just like take a moment to, recheck the timing, or discern that timing, as you were saying, just discern the timing. Like, okay, their potential's there. The timing doesn't really feel like that's viable for a while, or whenever. So what's my opportunity now? How do I live in the present and work with what I've got to work with?
So that wraps up this episode pretty well. And I would say that in the power of trust and the ability to be able to play with that energy a bit and to actually participate and show up can be easier than people realize if you work with those gifts you have inside and trusting spirit and the backing you have every single day. So thanks for listening and
Well
watching
said.
another episode of Spiritual Perspectives Discerning News. And we will be back soon with some more to share. Cheers. To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.